A manager told me not to do part of my job, so I didn't. This was a few years ago when I worked in a 4-star hotel chain that would be very well known in was part of a larger company that had hotels of varying status. I was about 24. There were a few of us who worked primarily in room service, and the breakfast shift was always a solo shift. One morning I started, and as was customary, I started doing my prep. Folding napkins. Setting up 5/6 trays with pastries, etc. Per the pre-ordered breakfast cards, so I would only need to grab the correct tea, coffee and hot food later, as well as a few extra all-purpose trays for the people who call for room service last minute. I just get finished with this when the duty manager, I can't remember his full name but nickname was Prem, bursts into the kitchen with a dirty plate in his hand and sees me in my area while putting it in the pile of dishes for the kitchen porter. He tells across the kitchen, "What are you doing? It's so crazy out there that I have to help clear tables and you are back here? Get out and help." Quote. I replied that I had not gone up and walked the halls to collect the trays left out overnight yet. And he yelled some more and repeated that if he, a manager, is clearing tables, I better help regardless of if my job is actually in a different area. For the record, Prem was a menace. I witnessed him yell in college girls' faces until they cried several times. He would also routinely pick on anyone that was minimum wage floor staff. So I walk into the restaurant and the supervisor, Jen, is at the door and sees me walk in. She covers for room service and has worked it in the past, so she knows I should be collecting trays now so that the place doesn't look like a war zone upstairs. She asks if I've done this and I say no. Prem sent me in to help because it's so busy. She says it's not very busy at all. They don't need me and I should go upstairs and collect the dirty trays. I walk back into the kitchen and Prem is still standing there. "What are you doing? I told you to go in and help." Quote. I went in and Jen said they don't need me and told me to collect the trays. He then accuses me of going to her and asking can I go collect trays to get out of helping, so I tell him he can in and ask her if she called me or if I approached her. This satisfies him that I'm at least not lying, but he's still not happy. He says, "I'm the duty manager." Manager. Jen is a supervisor. "I'm higher up, so you do what I tell you. Go in there and help clear tables. I don't want to see you going up to collect trays." I go back into the restaurant and Jen looks at me confused. I tell her that Prem insists that I help and won't let me go upstairs and says he outranks her, so she says I should join the guys at Station 1 and help their area. Breakfast passes and I pop out a few times to do my room services and come back with not much issue. My shift is until 3 p.m. and breakfast ended at 10:30 a.m. At this point nobody has been upstairs and housekeeping will have been putting out dirty trays. I get a call on the room service mobile from a housekeeping manager saying that floor 4 has a dozen or so trays in the hall. I'm sorry, the duty manager has prioritized other areas at the moment and has said I cannot go up. I start doing my afternoon prep, polishing cutlery and the like. About 12 p.m. I get another call, this time from the housekeeping's top manager. She tells me there is trays everywhere and I politely apologize and explain that my duty manager has used the exact words, "I don't want to see you going up to collect trays." She accepts this without question and asks that I help when I can. At 2 p.m. I get a call from the hotel's director of operations regarding the trays. At this point, there are trays in the hallways on all 7 floors and the place looks filthy. Again, I politely explain what instructions I've received from Prem and this is accepted without further question and he says he will inquire into it. 3 p.m. arrives and I have not heard anything else, nor have I cleaned up the pigsty upstairs. My replacement arrives and I tell him what happened and apologize for the fact that he will have to collect these, but tell him why. He laughs and decides to leave it until somebody else calls and informs him they are there. Shortly after this, Prem left the company. TLDR. A manager on a power trip told me not to do an important part of my job as I had to help somewhere. I was not needed. I left that part of my job alone for my full shift and advised all his superiors that he had advised me not to do it when I was questioned about it. He left the company shortly after. As a hotel guest, I feel like food scraps left on the floor would be a higher priority than food scraps left on a table. I worked in a hotel briefly. Lovely team, but it's definitely a place where management can get power trippy, sadly, in the name of high standards, when in reality it's over micromanagement, and 9 times out of 10 we had it covered. Anyway, just let us do our jobs. Prem comes from premium. My manager fills in when needed. He knows if he has to. It means we're swamped. We're almost always about to be swamped. But not quite. My manager has a lot of stress. By the way, it's not his fault we're on a skeleton crew. His requests for additional workers are repeatedly denied by his bosses. Doing something similar. My boss, she didn't have any projects for me to work on in downtime when I asked. So she doesn't want me doing that. When they asked me a few days later to look at setting up our phone system. Not my job to begin with. I told them to call customer service for the phone company since I'm not supposed to be working on projects. I can't believe people like Prem are able to get into these positions when it's clear that they are too stupid to be in that area in the first place. Besides firing the idiot, I say that they should start demoting or removing the idiots that allow jerks like Prem to get into these jobs because something clearly isn't right. I'm very satisfied with the ending of this. As someone who worked in a hotel for years, this story brings me joy. Our tales from the front desk. Basic business leadership teaches you to never ask someone else to do a job you won't do yourself. I own a custom car, truck and motorcycle shop and have on numerous occasions grabbed a broom to sweep up dirt and debris off the floor. I still remember the first time I did it. Everyone else in the shop stopped working and looked at me like I had 3 heads. I just started whistling and kept sweeping. Pretty soon everyone had a broom and was cleaning their own areas. Now the shop stays clean on a daily basis. I did hire a person who used to come in as part of a training program for mentally challenged people, who would dust the cars in the showroom and vacuum the floors. I taught him to sort usable metal from scrap metal, which I sell back to the metal company for recycling, and he is one of the best workers in the shop. I have worked room services in a 4-star hotel before too. Many years ago. For a short period of time. I was not great at this job. So I totally get this and how shitty that would look for such a nice hotel to have those trays just sitting out. I feel like this kind of managerial power tripping is all too common in the hospitality industry. Great story. Wow. Prem is a bitch. Don't do workarounds. Don't do shortcuts. Let it fail under its own weight. Had a similar manager. She used to give out 2 orders that negate each other, and when questioned which to prioritize, she threatened me. No matter what I did, it was always wrong. After 1 year of collecting 2 folders filled with evidence, I went to the CEO, gave it to him and left this company. She proceeded to call my new employer and tell the biggest tales about me. And she actually tried to run me over once with her car. Damn, that was a good time back then. This was in 2019. I worked security for a hotel. Whenever I did floor patrols, I'd pick up trays and set them up. Bowls, plates, cups, etc. separated and stacked together, near the employee elevator where the kitchen crew can grab and go. Sometimes I'd even have time to bring the stack down to the dishwasher station and continue on just 'cause I was bored and they had that breakfast rush, which sucks. The room service supervisor is an acquaintance and the manager and I have hung out outside of work for beers a few times and they never said anything. Well, one day, a room service employee, not a manager, not a supervisor, just an employee who'd been there for 5+ years. I had just 3 years. He sees me doing this and reams me for taking their job, and demands I never pick up trays again. Okay. I left all the trays where they were in the hallways. And it just so happened to be San Diego Comic-Con weekend, and for the cherry on top, he had been assigned morning's grin. So for the week of SDCC, the biggest convention of the year, this dude had to show up early in the morning, run through 12 floors of a hotel while the employee elevators were being clogged by housekeeping and other employees, then with only 2 others deliver food to those floors. A reminder. My nerd brethren spend a lot of money to go here and buy merch. Not a lot left over for tips. Which is the only reason I can think of for his anger. Never mind that I delivered the tray tips to the manager's cash box. I'd even gotten flack by a security coworker for not keeping the tips. Not my department. Not my money. As for me, I just walked the floors. Stopped a fight between Master Chief and Thanos. Met some actors, actresses and got some con swag from guests. Any more details on the fallout like for your next shift? Prem equals pretty rotten excuse of man. Wow, it seems to be a trend that hotel managers are notoriously awful. I had a manager like this who would scream in all of our faces to make us work 12-hour shifts with only one 30-minute break, and expect us to prioritize the hotel if she called us on our only day off in 1 week. I only had a short time in hotels, but you know it's gone sideways when the director of operations gets involved. I'm surprised Power Trippy manager wasn't frog marched out that day. He was probably salty that a manager needs to help out and thought maybe if he has to do it, he could delegate it to someone else. I have a manager like that. Told me while I was running food and I'm the only one on a bussy day to stop what I'm doing and hose down the trash cans. Then I got yelled at for not running food. So I told him if he notices that I'm bussy and something needs done, he can do it. I'm not going to get yelled at anymore for not doing something and then not doing something else, when I can't fucking do both. Just in case anyone's wondering, this is the correct response when someone orders you to do something stupid. You don't cover for them. You don't take the blame. You just do whatever protects you from the consequences of their decision. In this case, it's letting everyone know whose fault it is.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.